do wonder if he can move his neck though. Hey super friends, my name is Neil, and today I am taking a deep dive into some of the key moments and Easter eggs that you will find in the brand new trailer for The Flash from Warner Brothers. So just a quick recap, The Flash is coming to UK cinemas on June the 16th, 2023. It's directed by Andy Muschietti and stars Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, The Flash, several of him, as you will see from this trailer. We've also got both Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck, as we will see from this trailer, two different versions of Bruce Wayne and Batman. The film also stars Kiersey Clemons as Iris West. It stars Sasha Calle as Supergirl / Kara, again, who you will get to meet in this trailer. And we also have a couple of returning characters that you might recognise from a certain Man of Steel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to watch through the trailer. I'll put a little version of it so you can see the key bits that I'm talking about as we're going through. We're starting out the trailer outside of the Allen household. We get our first really, really clear look at Ezra in the Flash suit. It starts with an establishing shot that just features his feet. You can see that the costume is not just plain red or plain gold. There's quite a mix of the two different colours. His boots are quite heavily designed and there are streaks of gold in there. But then we cut to this head and shoulders shot, which is our first really, really detailed look at the costume design that he's now going to be wearing. If you have read the Flash Fastest Man Alive tie-in comic book, you'll know that this suit is gifted to him by Batman, and that is why later in the trailer you see he's already wearing the Flash ring. That's all aspects of the comic book, which you can pick up if you want to get that kind of in-between story from where he was in Zack Snyder's Justice League to where we find him in the Flash movie. But on to the details. So I have this on the screen in front of me right here. We can see that actually it appears the suit is very much powered up by the lightning bolt logo on his chest. So it would appear that as he is using or has recently used the Speed Force, it is powering up the suit. So the logo in this shot itself, the lightning bolt, is lit up, and then the veins in his costume are filled with light kind of pulsing out from the logo in the chest, and we can see that not only lights it up and adds some extra detail, but also it passes all the way through up into the lightning bolts that are in the helmet. Now admittedly, the helmet does look quite wide to me. In this particular shot, his neck seems particularly slim compared to the helmet, but it's a minor gripe. What I'm really impressed by is the amount of fine detail. So the way he is lit, he's underneath the streetlights outside his parents' house, and you can see from the shoulder that the streetlight is kind of bouncing off him, but it is also lighting up all of these. It's almost like fingerprint detailing that's in the costume. You can see it goes right across his chest and up the neck. There doesn't seem to be as much in the helmet, although there is some detailing in the forehead. We can also see that there are the lightning streaks on the side. But there is a lot of very, very small, fine detail that we've only really seen in the teaser images that Andy Muschietti shared. There was one of the Bat logo with blood, another of the Supergirl, the S, and then also the lightning bolt on the Flash's chest. So we get an idea of just how much detail is in that costume just from this one shot. And certainly from his facial expression, he's approaching the house with some trepidation. So I would imagine that this is Barry having just arrived on the 89 version of Earth, which is how I'm going to refer to it for the rest of this video, and that this is maybe him inching towards seeing his mother for the first time, or perhaps this is him just running by the house and reflecting on the fact that he misses his mum. Obviously, if you've watched the Flash show, you've read the comics, some of this is also in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but when Barry was a young child, his mum was murdered and his father is sent to prison, and that makes up a lot of his who he is, but also his reason for becoming the Flash and his motivations for wanting to be a good guy. And we know that obviously that's going to play in heavily to the storyline in this film, as it's very clear from this trailer that it's going to adapt some of the Flashpoint storyline. We get a very clear shot of what is the roof of Wayne Manor. So we know we're returning to the Wayne Manor from the Batman 89 movie, and now we're seeing it from a totally different perspective. So what you can see in this particular shot is the proximity that Wayne Manor has to Gotham. If you think back to Batman 89 and Batman Returns, there is that amazing, for both the score and the visual, shots of the Batmobile as it passes through the woods when he's taking Vicky Vale back to the Batcave. But we don't really, other than the sense of duration in that scene, get an idea as to how far away Gotham is from Wayne Manor, other than this idea that it is out in the burbs, as it were. So here we get a very, very wide shot that shows that there is a huge amount of woodland and suburbs between Wayne Manor and the Gotham skyline. There's not a lot to see in the skyline itself. It's a sunny day. There are a lot of towers. It's a very built-up city. There's no standout buildings or anything. But what I do want to point out is that this ties to a shot later in the trailer. So you can see the roof of Wayne Manor, and down in the bottom right-hand corner of the frame, there is a figure standing on the roof. Now, it's not at first glance easy to tell who it is. I thought for a second it may have been Supergirl when they arrive at Wayne Manor and bring her there after having rescued her, but actually you can see that the person is wearing a yellow hoodie, or it's a kind of almost like a Letterman jacket, and has the long hair that Ezra Miller is wearing when they are playing the Barry Allen of Earth 89. So this is definitely Barry on the roof, which ties to a shot which comes a little bit later in the trailer.
Another timeline. Another universe.
Now we get our first look at another of the Batmen of this film. Now, there are plenty of rumours that there may be 3 Batmen in this film, but for now, in this trailer, we're only seeing 2. It only takes a second for you to realise exactly who this is. This is Ben Affleck returning as Batfleck from the Snyderverse, just Zack Snyder's Justice League, Batman vs Superman, however you want to explain it. It's a quick establishing shot of him on his new Batcycle chasing a bunch of armoured vehicles down the street. There have been a number of set photos of this being filmed. It was filmed in Glasgow here in the UK, and you can see, actually, if you've ever been to Glasgow, you can see some of the very familiar signage on some of the buildings and also the bus stops as well. It's just a brief shot. We don't even get to see the front of Batman in this particular shot. It is just establishing him on his Batcycle and that he is involved.
So why do you want to stay and fight to save this one?
Because this is the world where my mom lives. I'm not gonna lose her again. Time has a
quick shot of sort of using the Speed Force, but we're not really going quite full into it yet. We're just seeing what is probably the beginnings of Barry running through time. So this is him entering the Speed Force as he's going to run, I would imagine, from his Snyder Earth to the 89 Earth. Lots of yellow electricity, so we see it's not quite the blue light that we saw in Zack Snyder's Justice League or the Justice League theatrical cut, but it's something a little warmer and a little more akin to what we would see in the comics. So there are some subtle changes that are just taking it from Snyder's vision to Muschetti's vision, and something that is maybe a little more close to what we would see in the pages of DC Comics. There's a very cool shot of the young Barry running out of the house in daylight that transitions, if you watch the background, transitions to nighttime, and he then passes by his older self standing out in the street, which could again be tied to our first scene. It could be another moment from that. It's another really cool shot of the suit though. In this shot, what we get to see is the suit powered down, is probably the best way to say it. So the seams and the lightning bolt chest logo aren't lit up. This is just simply the red suit. It looks a lot more almost like the 89 Batsuit. It's got some muscle molding, but it's also just very muscular and I guess imposing is what I want to say than it does when it's lit up. It's got less of the flashy effects, but it still has a lot of impact on the scene itself. You also get to see a couple more of the embellishments. So there are thunderbolts that are going around his arm, and also some thunderbolts that go around the waist of the costume. So you do get to see a little bit more detail there. This brings us to a very interesting shot of a hand that just grazes over a picture frame. It's quite clearly not Barry Allen and his parents that are in the photo. It's the hand of a slightly older man. And so this is clearly Thomas and Martha Wayne with a young Bruce. So I think what we're getting here is a moment of Bruce Wayne. Also, I guess just to give those two characters some sort of emotional connection, just thinking about and dwelling on his own past and his own loss of his parents. We then jump back to an interesting shot of the Snyderverse version of Barry, who is now in this shot bathed in blue light. So this would be closer to what we've seen from Zack Snyder's Justice League. So there's a question here potentially about the colour of his lightning. The question here is, what does this mean? So there's some of the blue lightning, there's also some yellow lightning here. Is there a transitionary phase with the powers?
magnets. My face. You stole my face.
If you were to go into the past, you have no idea.
Now, this takes us to an interesting shot. So what we see in the next shot is the two Barry Allens in a moment which I think is going to be very important for what comes later. So what we understand of this Earth is that there are no metahumans. So when our Barry from the Snyderverse lands on this Earth, there is no Flash. There is a Barry Allen, but there is no Flash. And it would appear that we're almost recreating the accident that gave Barry his powers in order to pass his powers on to this Earth's version of Barry Allen. And so maybe this is a moment where we're seeing potentially the creation of the film's villain, or someone who could go on to become a villain towards the end of this story. But we're certainly seeing a moment whereby the powers are being shared, and it certainly looks like it's a very painful moment for our Barry Allen, because he does not look very happy about it, even though he is the one that he's trying to show his powers. Which leads us into one of my favourite shots in the trailer. So we get a close-up shot of the Flash ring. So it is presumably our Barry Allen from Snyderverse's fist as the ring twists and opens up, and you see the costume inside. The really cool thing about this is, again, the amount of fine detail. So for those who aren't familiar with the comic books, the Flash keeps his suit in a ring on his hand, and as he is running, he will put the ring out and it opens and the costume flies out and he puts it on around him. Going to be a very cool effect if we get to see this in the film itself. But what we're just seeing here is just it simply opening. But what you can see inside is the small version of the chest logo with all of those ridges and the veins that come out from it completely intact, just shrunk down to miniature size. I know it's CGI and it's not functional and it doesn't work, but it just looks so cool. The colours in it are very vibrant as well. The gold of the ring looks different to the gold of the suit, but there's just a real pop of red as it opens up, and it has me very excited to see if they can pull this off and make it work in action, because if they can, I will be very, very impressed.
I could fix things. You could also destroy everything.
This can't be happening.
Now, I'm not going to spoil for you here exactly how this is going to happen in the film itself, but what we see in this next shot is Snyderverse version of Barry in a bar, presumably on 89 Earth, as General Zod, played by Michael Shannon, cuts through news feeds and says that he is coming to Earth. It's the same staticky shot with him in the background that we saw in Man of Steel when Henry Cavill had returned home to his mother, and they spot the object in the sky and the power cuts out, and then the signal comes across on TV. And it's Michael Shannon Zod speaking in every language to everyone across the Earth, saying that he is looking for Kal-El. Only in this instance, we know that that's not necessarily who he is looking for. Cut to another very familiar shot, which is the world engine from the Kryptonian ship hovering above a city. We don't know if this is Central City or if we are actually going to go to Metropolis. I would imagine this is Central City. I don't know. Could be Central. It's got to be Central City, I would imagine. So we are literally seeing those plot points from Man of Steel be carried back out with the same design of the ship. Everything is back down to the exact same detail how it was in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
I completely broke the universe. Zod.
We've been waiting for you.
I created a world with no metahumans.
That's backed up by the next shot, which is of a Kryptonian costume. Now, for a second, if you didn't know where this film was going, you could have imagined that this could have been Henry Cavill. It's the way that the costume is laid out. You can see much of the S. It has the Kryptonian language from Henry Cavill's suit running through the centre of it, as it did in Batman vs Superman, and it's clearly been cast aside. The person that owns this costume is not wearing it.
And now there's no one to defend us.
Want some help?
So this is, for those who don't know, a 100% callback to Flashpoint. So in the story of Flashpoint, Barry Allen runs back in time and protects his mother from ever having died. And by doing so, he creates a new future where nothing has played out the way it did on his Earth. It seems that this film is going to change that slightly, in that he's run to the Batman 89 Earth rather than creating another Earth. He may think that that's what he's done, but really what he's doing is traversing the multiverse. Now, in the Flashpoint storyline, they discover that there is basically a there is an alien battery which is being used by the army to power weaponry, and when they go and find this alien creature that is being used and held by the army, it's Kal-El. Again, absolutely emaciated, completely starved of ever having seen the sun, so that they never have their Kryptonian powers and can't overpower the armies. What we know here is this is not going to be Kal-El. This is someone entirely different, and that's what the trailer is now setting up. We get to see that moment that we've seen in the Fandom trailer, where Barry lifts the lever and turns on the power in the Batcave. What we see now is a much wider version of that shot. We see the Batmobile, the Batman 89 and Batman Returns Batmobile, covered with a cloth on its circular platform where it drives into the Batcave. There's more design work to this version of the Batcave. It was very minimalist in the Tim Burton films. This is much more maximalist. There's huge concrete walls with ladders and gangways, hundreds of bats. We pull out. We don't get to see the Batmobile itself. It pulls back to the platform and brings us to the shot that ended the sizzle reel at Fandom, where Michael Keaton's Batman steps into frame with those really foreboding booming steps. Only now we actually get to see the reaction of the two Barry Allens as one of them drops his cup and the two look on in complete shock, and we then get our first look at Michael Keaton up front as Batman in the Batsuit. You can see instantly that there is a step up in the design work from Batman Returns to this version. It's less modelled directly on his anatomy and more modular. It has slightly cleaner lines, it has a cleaner chest plate, and he has a new set of shoulders. That sounds very strange. The shoulder plate of the cowl is slightly different, so the cape is coming out from this new, slightly more padded version of the cowl. We do get a much better look at this in a second. I just want to bask in the moment as he steps into frame. The camera closes in on his face. He has that smirk that Michael Keaton has and that glint in his eye as he repeats the line, "I'm Batman." Do wonder if he can move his neck though.
You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman.
Another cool shot of what appears to be a sinkhole opening up. It's in Gotham City because you can see the ambulance in the background, says Gotham City Fire Department on it, and just in the bottom left hand corner of the frame, I just noticed in the top left of the frame, you can see that it's in front of what's called the Martha Wayne Institute. You can just see the detail. It would appear to be a hospital. There's an emergency room sign over on the far right, so this must be something to do with a hospital in Gotham City.
If I can't undo what I did...
Which leads us to Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, swooping down and giving us a much better look at his costume in a good light. So he stands doing the superhero pose, and the lighting is directly from above shining down, so you get a very clear shot of the chest logo. You can see that it's much more 3D relief than it has been previously, and you get an idea of this new version of his cowl and how the spines on the bat shaping of the cowl lean across his shoulders, with the cape then coming out from inside. So his cape is very much over his shoulders and back across him, rather than as it was in the 89 films, where it's kind of folded over behind him. The only thing I would say with this, he has some very cool gauntlets that you can see. You can just see the spikes on his gauntlets. You can, however, see that it is a kind of all-in-one leatherish rubber type suit like he used to wear, but it has some, I'm going to say the word is ruching. It's sort of folded up, whereby it doesn't quite fit the form as much as it maybe used to. It's not as rigid as it used to be back in the 80s and early 90s.
If I can't get back...
Cut to a very high action moment as two Flashes seem to come back to back with each other as their boots touch. Now, the reason that this is important, you can see on the right hand side of the frame that it is the Snyderverse Barry. It's our, as I keep saying, our Barry in the red, but on the left hand side of the frame is a Barry in a much darker costume. It does have red accents, but this is our first look at the 89 version of Barry, repurposing a bat suit as a Flash suit after powers have been passed over. Now, what's interesting here is the Snyderverse Barry has gold lightning and the 89-verse Barry has the blue-white lightning. So we're going to tell the two apart by the type of lightning that they have.
There might not be a future.
Then we get to the big shot of Ben Affleck. It's again, it's very, very brief. It's blink and you'll miss it. You'll need to pause it to see it. But you can see that he's got a little bit of extra armor over the top of his batsuit, but not like the Dark Knight costume that he was wearing in Batman vs Superman. It's probably armor that he maybe wears when he's on his motorcycle. What's very interesting here, and it may just be the lighting, it's hard to tell, is that he is he almost appears like his cowl and his cape are blue, which is something that we haven't seen on film before, and very, very cool. It could just be the daylight lighting, could just be how the shot is composed at this point, but it certainly seems like he has got a slightly different costume, which may well be to help define between the two Batmen. I mean, one is grey and the other is black, but maybe they've gone for a slightly more of a colour update between the two of them to just try and define the two Batmans, to ensure you kind of know when you're on one Earth or when you're on the 89 Earth.
What's the play?
This brings us to the big moment unveiling of Supergirl. So we get to see the Snyderverse version of Barry Allen on the ground, surrounded by armed guards. And he is with Batman, who also has his hands in the air. And the moment cuts round to reveal that they have freed the Kryptonian, which we know is Kara Sashikaze, who is floating in the background as someone shoots towards her. So this is now the big set piece in, I believe, a Russian prison, which is where they go and they break her out. So we know that the Barry, both of the Barrys are going to be there, and also the 89 version of Batman in full costume is going to be there. We get a whole bunch of shots of Supergirl in action. She seems pretty angry, but I'm sure you would be if you'd been locked up in prison for your entire life and devoid of the sun. I know some people will probably comment on the fact that she does appear to kill some of these soldiers, but you have to bear in mind that what we're suggesting here is that she grew up on Krypton, had 14 years of her life there, arrived on Earth and was immediately locked up and has been tortured and kept out of sunlight for this entire time. So she's just been left to starve, essentially. So there's a lot of anger there. There is a very cool shot which I've got on screen in front of me right now, as she, in kind of speed motion, is flying towards a soldier who looks like they're about to shoot at Michael Keaton's Batman. He's on the other side of the frame, literally mid-punch. Very cool shot where you get to see the costume actually. You can see a lot of the definition in colour between how dark the cowl is compared to a slight grey tint which is in the rest of his chest plate.
Not Clark.
My name is Kara.
I'm Barry. We're Barry. Barry, what are you doing? Our kids are going to want to see this.
And that brings us to a really cool shot where you actually get to see her costume in action just a little bit close up. You've seen some of the detail already from the earlier shot, but you can see it's a good idea of how the visual effects in this film are going to work as she flies along by and zips off, breaking the sound barrier. And that brings us to our in cinemas June 16th, and the trailer comes to an end. So there is a lot to unpick in this trailer. I hope I have informed you a little bit more about what you might come to expect in this film, as well as pointed out some cool little moments that you might have missed. If you really enjoyed this video, then please do like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below to let me know what you're excited about seeing in The Flash when it comes to cinemas on June the 16th. You can check out our podcast, which is releasing new episodes fortnightly-ish on all major platforms, and there are plenty of interviews and other fun things for you to check out on our YouTube channel, so why not? And I will see you very, very soon. Bye. Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?